Welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for being a part of the conversation, folks. We got a lot to talk about. First and foremost, we'll give you the latest around the expelled Tennessee lawmakers, how the city of Nashville has now said that they are looking to hold a special meeting today to consider reappointing one of the Justins back to the House. So we'll bring you the latest around that situation. Also, Justice Clarence Thomas of the Supreme Court defends his gift from a GOP billionaire that he has been getting lavish gifts from for decades. We'll talk a little bit about that and the implication it has on the courts. Also, we got today's installment of Reclaim Your Wellness with Dr. Bridget, MD. We're going to have a conversation about how the NBA has made it possible for players to use cannabis. We're going to have a conversation with Dr. Bridget and my man Scotty. Also, we're going to talk to my man Scotty of Boston TV about Baltimore Ravens have now officially signed Odell Beckham Jr. for a one-year deal and how that may play a huge part on the whole quarterback controversy for Lamar Jackson. So stay with us. All of those conversations are up next. And of course, your thoughts on the discussion. So stay with us. It's the culture here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. All right, folks, welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for being a part of the conversation and wanting to participate. Hopefully you enjoyed your weekend. This is officially Easter Monday, but I hope that you enjoyed the holiday weekend and got some rest, spent some time with family, was in prayer, and certainly being a part of the celebrations this weekend. But we have a lot to talk about to kick off this week here. First and foremost, let's give you the latest around the situation in Tennessee. Of course, we talked about it last week about those, the Tennessee three, the three lawmakers, or the two lawmakers that were expelled, and one lawmaker who has still kept her job as a result of their involvement in a gun violence, gun reform protest that happened last week in the House of Representatives in Tennessee. And so we know both of those lawmakers, two black lawmakers, Justin Pearson and Justin Jones, have both been expelled. And now the conversation has shifted from not just talking about the breakdown of democracy, but the conversation has really shifted to what's next, what can happen. Well, we shared with you here on the culture on the Black Star Network that the county commissioner had the opportunity, or has the right rather, to make sure that there could be a couple of ways to handle this situation, since this is unprecedented. One is that they can either appoint, the county commissioner would be responsible in appointing someone to fill the vacant seats of the two lawmakers that represent Nashville and Memphis. The other way is to host a special election that would happen, and essentially Justin Jones and Justin Pearson would be able to rerun for those seats again. Well, today, it is so far in this conversation, the latest development is that taking a look at this, folks, that Nashville's Metro Council is likely to reappoint Justin Jones to the seat during a specially called Monday meeting. They're going to have this meeting. They have been having this meeting today. The Shelby County Commission plans to announce soon when it will meet to fill the vacancy left by Justin Pearson's expulsion. Likewise, commissioners can reinstall Pearson, who is from Memphis. Both former lawmakers told NBC's Meet the Press on Sunday that they want to return to their positions as lawmakers. Special elections for the seats, which have yet to be set, will follow in the coming months. Folks, I want to get your take on this as we look at the situation. Take a look at this. This is from CNN, of course, and they will consider sending this ousted quote unquote lawmaker back to the House But I want to get your take on this, folks. So post your comments on our chat as we're streaming live on YouTube and Facebook. Certainly streaming live on Black Star Network and Amazon News. But I would love to get your take. What do you think the county commissioner will do? What do you think will be the best course of action for the Nashville Metro Council to do or to take around this situation? And you know, we talked about this on Friday, that in order for Justin Jones to be reappointed, there has to be some level of mobilizing or organizing by folks, by the black community in Nashville. They have to, the folks got to stand in solidarity. So I would love to hear what y'all got to say, crew, around this situation as we look at this, that Nashville, again, Metro Council is looking to reappoint Justin Jones back to his seat. Justin Pearson is still being considered. And if that's the way it goes, then we could be looking at a special election, excuse me, at a special election that's going to be happening in the next few months. Now, this situation, of course, has garnered the attention of the whole country, from the highest office of the land, from the President of the United States, all the way through the local jurisdictions in Nashville and in Tennessee. And many people are trying to figure out, well, what has happened? How did this continue? How did this happen? And so as a result of that, folks, you know, it's going to be more than interesting. Here's what I think that should happen. They should do a special election. They should do a special election, right? I don't think this should be about reappointment. I think there needs to be a special election. And here's why. Because the reason that they were ousted was not right. It was, now some people might go as far as to say it was unconstitutional. And I think, I mean, just with my very limited knowledge of constitutional law, and especially as it speaks in politics, yes, they should do something, right? The county commissioner should not be, you know, of course they have the power to reappoint someone, but this situation, and we mentioned this situation of removing these two lawmakers affects over 140,000 Tennessee citizens. 140,000 Tennessee citizens who did not send Justin Jones or Justin Pearson to the Capitol to be removed. It's obvious, and it's hard for me to truly believe, folks, that Justin Pearson or Justin Jones all of a sudden gave one message during their campaign trail, and then they got to the House, and then another message emerged. That's hard for me to truly believe. I wouldn't believe that. I believe both of these brothers are consistent or have been consistent in their messaging. And so this is not new, that the voters knew exactly who they were sending to the House in Tennessee. The other thing is, this is a huge swipe. If the county commissioner decide that they're going to reappoint, this is a huge swipe against voters, not just black voters, but just all voters in those two areas of Nashville and Memphis. Huge swipe. It's just essentially you're saying, you guys don't know what you're doing. You don't know how to pick your leaders. Therefore, we'll pick them. And if you go down that very, very slippery road, folks, then you're talking about another value that starts to uproot, quote unquote, democracy at its fundamentals, at its core. And I think that's the part about this whole situation that we're looking at, that this is a real problem. All right, let me go to what y'all got to say on this, folks, and then we're going to make sure that we continue to talk about this. And so let me go to my guy Willie Frazier. Willie, you said the Tennessee 2 should get their seats back. I feel for the brothers in an uphill battle with Confederates. Absolutely, bro. Absolutely. It's going to be an uphill battle. It's going to be an uphill battle. That's why Black Tennessee, black folks in Nashville, black folks in Memphis, you got to stand up in solidarity. You got to stand up in solidarity. So it's going to be a real problem. Now, here's one of the great concerns about this, Willie and folks. One of the great concerns that the councils will have to really consider is the possibility of retribution from the state legislators in the form of either funding cuts, or freezes for projects each area is dependent upon, on the state to fund. This is American politics at its core. If you decide to do something like this, now you got to think about, now this is the Nashville Metro Council has to think about, this is the folks in Memphis has to think about, that if you put these lawmakers, or if you allow them to, if you host a special election, you may have to deal with retribution. Isn't that sad? Even though the state leaders were wrong, the state legislators were wrong, now the local legislators have to fear retribution. And it's a very real fear. So you're talking about essentially a state that is at war with itself. I don't know if folks y'all understand how crazy, but most importantly, how detrimental and threatening to democracy this really is. That you might have a state leaders who go to war with its two major cities of Nashville and Memphis. Major concern. Sandy, you checked in and said, look, they were ousted because the GOP was given an opportunity to put some black men and young citizens in check on who runs the state. To them, they had a glorified temper tantrum. I couldn't agree with you more there, Sandy. I could not agree with you more. But let's talk about the fact that you got this retribution that may be happening. Do you think that these cities, the Nashville Metro Council, the Memphis folks, do you think that they're willing to take that chance to put it on the line by bringing these guys back, these brothers back, and then now they got to deal with the state legislators? And this is why when we talk about democracy, we have to talk about, or rather, not just the principle of democracy, the expression of democracy, because it gets to be a thing of pettiness. It gets to be a thing of you scratch my back, I scratch yours, not even considering what's in the best interest of the voters. That's the part. That the retribution is very real. I lived in Baltimore, and it felt like in some cases, Annapolis, the state capital of Maryland, it felt like often that when Baltimore decided to make a move, whether it's around the issue of education or policing, and the state was not in agreement with the city's leadership, guess who gets trampled in that? The interest of the people. Now, that was on policy most of the time, some of the time. Sometimes it could be about personalities. This is about personalities. This is about lawmakers who did not agree, not just with the gun reform situation, which is absolutely insane, if they don't agree with making some type of reform to gun laws and try to get some rein on gun control. But it is also insanity. The real insane part is that you don't like to be disrupted by the powerful voices of two dynamic young black men who are not afraid to speak truth to power. And that's what it comes down to. The hatred, the vitriol, the racism of the whole matter. All right, let me go back to you folks. And look, I want to take a quick pause. When we come back, I'm gonna come back to you. I got my brother, Dr. Jason Jones, Dr. Jason Nichols, that's going to be joining us. Let's continue to have that conversation. Also, in the next conversation, we're going to look at the situation with Clarence Thomas and the Supreme Court and what should be dealt with there, how he should be handled. So, folks, we got a lot to talk about. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to PO Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is roland@rolandsmartin.com. Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. We've been talking a little bit about the latest development out of Tennessee. At the Nashville Metro Council has been holding a special meeting today to consider whether they want to take or reappoint, either reappoint someone new to the vacant seat that has been offered as a result of the expulsion of Justin Jones, the lawmaker, one of the Tennessee 3 lawmakers that were removed last week, or whether they should hold a special election. So they are trying to figure out what's the best course of action to deal with this situation in Nashville. In Memphis, where Justin Pearson is from, they're trying to figure that out as well, that as there may be a special election for Justin Pearson's seat as well in the next few months. So there is still a lot of deliberation, a lot of conversation that's happening about what to do, how to handle this situation as a result of House GOP leadership, the supermajority in the House there in Tennessee, deciding that out of racism, out of vitriol, out of hatred, they wanted to expel these 2 black lawmakers. However, they did not expel the older white lawmaker, Representative Gloria Johnson, who has been standing in solidarity with both Justin Jones and Justin Pearson throughout this whole ordeal. And this all comes back to the fact that they did not like those 2 black lawmakers being a part of a protest of thousands of people that converged on the grounds of the state legislature to talk about gun reform, gun control, and gun issues. What is happening? Let me bring my brother in, Dr. Jason Nichols, who serves as a lecturer for the Department of African American Studies at the University of Maryland. one of my great contributors here on The Culture, get his take on the matter. Doc, good to talk to you, dear brother. How you feeling today?
Hey, I'm blessed, brother.
Good. Hey, man, look, I know you've been following this story, bro. I know you've been following this story. What's the next course of action here? And my thinking is Black Tennessee, Black Nashville, Black Memphis got to organize. Folks got to stand in solidarity. The other thing is the Nashville Metro Council and the folks in Memphis need to really come out and condemn the actions of their state legislators. But on the flip side, they do have the fear of retribution is real. You know about that level of fear. Certain projects won't get funded. Certain things will freeze up. So what do you make of this, bro?
So first of all, I hope that Shelby County and Nashville act in the way that they should, which is not even to waste the time and the resources of going through a special election. Just the county council can just reappoint them on an interim basis until they can get that special election going. The other thing I think that needs to happen is just like those people came out to support the protests to change gun violence, and we just saw what happened in Louisville, where a white male by the name of Connor Sturgeon went in and shot 5 people and killed 5 people, and a police officer is clinging to life right now. So gun violence is a serious problem in our country, and it has to, I think the same people that turned out for that protest in Nashville need to turn out again, but also make it about gun violence and democracy, and not taking the votes of Black and brown and young people, the people who put Justin Pearson and Justin Jones in office, not disregarding their votes, because that's exactly what this is. This is a turn against democracy. It says, Black folks, young folks, when you vote, if we don't like it and we don't like the people you vote for, we'll just remove them. And this is the same thing that I've been saying. It's connected to what they're trying to do with Fonnie Willis in Atlanta. If we don't like you, if you are not subservient enough, we'll remove you. Now, people are trying to compare this to January 6th. I mean, it's just absurd. It was a peaceful protest. No one was harmed. No police officers are calling out of work because they've been injured. No windows broken. No feces smeared on the walls. This was a peaceful protest, and some lawmakers believed, after seeing children bleeding on the ground and dying, that something needs to be done about gun violence. And here we are with 6 or 5 other people who are dead. There needs to be action taken. And I want this to be known. I'm not anti-gun. I'm a gun owner myself. So I'm not against guns. But I don't think we need to proliferate the amount of guns that we have out here, and the same amount of firepower and extended magazines and many of these things that actually lead to massive death. We can actually take some steps to mitigate some of this gun violence. It's not going to all go away. And no one's saying anyone's going to come into your house and take your gun. What they are saying is we need to make it so that guns are for protection of your home, occasionally protection of yourself, but can't be in the wrong hands used to take out massive amounts of people, the way we saw in Las Vegas, or the way we saw at Tree of Life, or the way we saw in El Paso, or the way we saw in Buffalo. This has got to stop. And kudos to Justin Pearson and Justin Jones, who I think are going to be superstars in the Democratic Party moving forward. If there's one shining light and one blessing out of this whole thing, it's that people like Justin Pearson and Justin Jones are now household names, and they needed to be. And and Justin Pearson was on Roland's show, and that was the first time I saw him. This man is incredibly articulate and takes leadership seriously. So it's good that we have these kinds of young people who are ready to take the mantle from some of us older folks. But we need to understand what's going on. We need to make sure, Black folks in particular, need to make sure that we let the legislature in Tennessee and nationwide know that you will not take the people that were duly elected, that we cast our ballots for, and just remove them because you don't like something they did. They have somebody who urinated in the chair on the floor and did not get removed. You've got somebody who now is no longer in office, but who admitted on tape to sexually molesting a minor and was accused by 2 others as when he was a basketball coach for young girls. Was not removed by the legislature in Tennessee. You had people who have been accused of domestic violence, not removed, but somebody who makes their voice known and stands alongside their constituents because they're sick of seeing the blood on the floor of young people and older people. All of a sudden, we turn against democracy and we remove them.
And see, that's the thing about this, brother Jason. The thing is, we haven't, and first and foremost, let me say, my heart and prayers and our condolences go out to the victim's family from that bank robbery that had gone terribly wrong, where 4 people were killed, 9 were wounded, 3 are in critical condition as a result of that active shooter situation in Louisville. So our hearts and prayers here on The Culture go out to those folks and to their families. But it's unfortunate that we can't even, the racism is so deep in this country, bro, that you can't even get into a conversation about a situation that is right there in your face. You're so concerned that these 2 Black men are standing tall, are challenging you. You're so concerned that one of them wore dashiki on the house floor that you can't even get to see the fact that you got thousands of people who are really concerned about guns and how they're moving in this country and the laws around them. You're so enraged by the fact that these young Black men are challenging you and speaking truth to power. You're so enraged, but with your racism and vitriol, that you can't even function. You can't even follow your own rules. You don't even go to your own ethics committee. You don't even go through the process that you created. You just want them out. That's how enraged you are with this situation.
Absolutely.
And it's mind blowing, bro, that folks still think that, you know, even in 2023, like, we're so shocked. This is Tennessee. This is Tennessee, folks. This is what America are y'all living in? Because the America that I'm living in, Donald Trump is praised as a hero by some. The America that I'm living in, people are banning books because they don't want us to know the true history of Black people. The America that I'm living in, please.
You know, it's funny.
Go ahead, bro. I got about 30 seconds.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. I was just watching one of the networks, and there was somebody who, you know, when they heard it was in Louisville, they automatically assumed that the shooter was an African American and was talking about values in our community. Come to find out, the guy is white.
Right. I'm sorry. Yeah, it wasn't a bank robbery. He was a bank employee. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
let me make that correction.
Employee. They don't exactly know the circumstances from what I can see. But again, you're absolutely right that we as a country are in a very, very precarious state where 50% of the country is following a path that we thought we were past. And you heard how that man who brought the bill to remove them, how he talked to those men on the floor. He dressed them down like they were children, not like they were colleagues that had gone wrong. He talked to them like they were literal children. And that is the legacy that goes all the way back to the bondage that our ancestors were in. And the only thing we can do is now we have a strong voice. We can use that. The way those kids and those people and those young people showed up at the State House, they should show up again this week and show up also talking about that and about the unfair removal of Representative Pearson and Representative Jones.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Look, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, folks, we'll continue our conversation with my brother, Dr. Jason Nichols, excuse me. But then we'll also continue to get your thoughts on the situation. And let's talk a little bit about, if we're talking about this breakdown of democracy, let's talk about what we're seeing coming from the Supreme Court with Justice Clarence Thomas accepting lavish gifts from a GOP billionaire and how it may not lead to any type of consequences for the Supreme Court justice. So we'll have that conversation up next too. So stay with us. A lot to cover here on the first hour of The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told. Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Pull up a chair. Take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
We're all impacted by the culture, whether we know it or not. From politics to music and entertainment, it's a huge part of our lives, and we're going to talk about it every day right here on The Culture with me, Farajii Muhammad, only on the Black Star Network.
We feel the hidden impacts of climate change that land harder in Black, Brown, and Native communities.
Not many people talk about it because they clearly don't know our lives. But with President Biden's landmark infrastructure and climate plans, our issues are finally seen.
Removing lead pipes means we know our water is safe. Cutting carbon pollution helps our kids breathe easier. 1.5 million new jobs means stable work in communities. The impact we need
right now.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. We've been talking about the latest development in the whole scenario, the whole case of the expelled Black lawmakers of Tennessee. Some people have, it started off with the Tennessee Three, former Representative Justin Jones, former Representative Justin Pearson, and Representative Gloria Johnson. Now it's down to the Tennessee Two, because these two Black men, Justin Jones and Justin Pearson, seems to be in the thick of things. And they're trying to figure out to determine either the Nashville Metro Council, the Shelby County Commissioners, both of these group of folks are trying to figure out the best course of action in handling the recent expulsion by House GOPs to these two Black men. I want to bring my brother, Dr. Jason Nichols, back into the conversation. So, Doc, really quickly, as we look at how this thing is moving forward, I know Vice President Kamala Harris took a visit down there last week to continue to promote the gun reform conversation and to show solidarity for the groups of folks that was down there at the Capitol for that situation, and to talk to the Democratic leadership there in Tennessee. What do you make of that? What as far as you know, anything significant from her visit and in trying to bring some sanity back into this whole scenario?
Well, I don't think that her visit makes much of a difference for those representatives in terms of getting their jobs back. I think that's going to come down to those councils. And again, they've been threatened in terms of taking funding away from them if they try to return the representatives back to their duly elected posts. I think that it is symbolic, and I think it's really important for this administration, particularly as they start preparing for election season 2024, to show what side of this argument they're on, to show that they are pro-democracy, that just as it was in 2020, that this is a fight for democracy, and as cliche as it sounds, like Joe Biden said, the soul of America, the soul of the nation. We are, one of the things that separates us is that we actually, in theory, take people's votes seriously. And we have moved beyond, in theory, the Jim Crow tactics of disenfranchising Black people, in theory. But yet, we're seeing things like this. And I think Joe Biden and Kamala Harris need to establish themselves and say, we're on the side of democracy. We're on the side of voters. We're on the side of Black folks who have had our backs. So I think that that's going to be an important thing. And I think that's why you saw Kamala Harris take time out to visit Tennessee. And I also think, obviously they want better gun control. That's something that has been on their agenda. And one of the things that Joe Biden passed was the first meaningful gun legislation we've had in 3 decades. So I think he wants to establish, look, we really need to, we've done something, we need to do more. Right. And certainly more needs to be done. And I think her being there is in solidarity, is symbolically important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we will see how this meeting, what comes out of this meeting out of Nashville. And then, of course, I didn't see any details about what Shelby County commissioners, when they plan to meet, but I'm assuming they may be meeting this week or very soon. And we will have to see how these meetings come out. But let's shift gears from the national, from the local politics of the state politics of Tennessee to the national politics of what's going on with the Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. And this is a very interesting story here, Doc, because Clarence Thomas has been in the spotlight either because of the stuff that his wife Jenny Thomas has done and her unwavering support for conservatism and for Donald Trump and all of that that has happened with the January 6th committee. You would think that this guy would kind of tamp down would just like, you know what, I'm gonna kind of keep everything cool and stay chill. But Justice Clarence Thomas, who has been receiving gifts, lavish gifts from a GOP billionaire for decades. This is not just one time. This is an ongoing relationship that the Supreme Court Justice has been getting. He's accepted gifts from Harlan Crow, who is a GOP mega donor. And if this information has gotten out, Justice Clarence Thomas has gone public on Friday. In a statement, he said that colleagues and others in the judiciary not only blessed his cozy relationship with the Texas real estate developer, but determined that he didn't have to publicly disclose the gifts on his annual financial disclosure statements. Wow. 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 Wow.
Yeah.
So you can get gifts as a Supreme Court judge and don't have to disclose it. And you not only don't you have to disclose it, you were told by the same law-abiding, law-making colleagues that you don't have to disclose it. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you this, Farajii. I don't think I'm going to be honest, and I know this may upset some people. I don't think this is the bombshell that a lot of other people think it is. I think he should, there should be some sort of system where he gets a reprimand for doing this. He argues that he didn't have to do it at the time. And the one thing I will say is that the rules for the Supreme Court are so nebulous that they get away with anything. And that's part of the problem. We need to establish rules, and I would argue either term limits and perhaps even expand the court. But I think, term limits and other things that we need to do for the Supreme Court in order to establish, better practices. But I think what you alluded to earlier, if we want to talk about removal, which a lot of people have suggested, it's much more about his wife and his refusal to recuse himself from cases that clearly his wife had some sort of connection to. That, to me, is a much bigger case that nobody talked about, or people talked about it, but not enough. He should have gotten tons of pressure to almost step down, and there should have been some sort of removal process that Democrats, when they were in charge, should have instituted, because he actually ruled on a case like that. And guess what? It was 8-1.
Damn.
8-1. That means Justice Kavanaugh, who's a Trump appointee. That means Justice Gorsuch, who's a Trump appointee. That means Amy Coney Barrett, another Trump appointee, all voted and said, because it was about communications from the White House, said, yeah, he should have to turn those communications over. The dissenting vote was Clarence Thomas. Why did he dissent? Because his wife was probably on a lot of those.
Right.
It comes out.
Right.
And yet, that, to me, that's the bigger story than the private jet. I'm still waiting for Farajii to get an invitation on your private jet and your boat.
Come on, man, please. The invitation is coming, brother. The invitation is coming. I just got to get your address. Here's the thing. Here's the thing about this. This doesn't do nothing. This doesn't bode well in a country where people have lost hope in government institutions. This doesn't add to the conversation in a beneficial way, right? Mm-hmm. And let me just share with you what some of the crew members are saying. Felita Cavett, you said, I know we are not surprised at any of this. No, Felita, we're not surprised at any of this at all. Thank you for checking in. Sandy, you said Clarence Thomas is another person that feels he can skirt the law. Oh, yeah. Oh, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Pauline, you said Jeannie Thomas should be questioned on her role in the January 6th insurrection. Absolutely. But that's the thing. Like, people do not look. I remember years ago, and we're going to take a quick pause after this. I remember years ago when I was a little boy, the Supreme Court was the law of the land. When they said something, it was like almost like God was speaking. Mm-hmm. That's how major the Supreme Court. Y'all remember years ago, the Supreme Court, when they came down with something, it was like, whoo, oh my God, the Supreme Court ruled. That was like considered to be the safe haven. That was the space where, regardless of your color, it came down to the law. It came down to what was right and wrong. At this point in these years, people are not thinking about the Supreme Court. It don't carry the same amount of weight as it used to 25, 30, 40, 50 years ago. It doesn't carry. The Supreme Court is seen as like a district court. You know what I'm saying? It's unfortunate because it's so wrapped up in, like you mentioned, the partisanship of who elects who instead of the people electing, the president's elected, and that just becomes another part of this whole process. Look, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, we're going to have more comments about Justice Clarence Thomas accepting these gifts and the implication that it has on the Supreme Court with Dr. Jason Nichols and with you. So stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. We've been talking about Justice Clarence Thomas of the Supreme Court taking lavish gifts from GOP mega donor Harlan Crow and the impact that it's having on the court. Justice Thomas said that he was informed by his colleagues that he wouldn't have to disclose any of these gifts on any type of financial statements, that he can pretty much keep it a secret, and that his colleagues told him it was okay. This is a man that is on the highest court of the land, and he don't know ethics. I mean, that's hard for me to believe. Hard for me to believe. I got my brother, Dr. Jason Nichols, joining me from the University of Maryland, giving his take on this. And folks, of course, we want to hear from you. Here's another piece I want to throw out there, Doc, around this whole conversation. This is coming from legal expert, because folks, legal experts and Democratic leaders are now saying that there are a lot more questions that need to be answered. And so going to the point that you made, how some people are calling for Justice Thomas to step down or to be impeached. I think it opens the door for us to have a very, very important conversation about code of ethics for the Supreme Court, because at this point, they can just do whatever the hell they want to do. And hey, I'm a justice. All right, let me share with you what's being said by policy by legal experts. Take a look at this, folks. This is coming from Lisa Graves, who serves as the former Deputy Assistant Attorney General in the Justice Department's Office of Legal Policy. She said, and these are questions that he should answer under oath under penalty of perjury. He needs to name every person he spoke with who gave him such advice, and whether they're in government or outside the government. She told USA Today, she said, because I would be shocked if he actually told any official the specifics of what he was doing and that they said it was okay not to disclose it. Talking about how his colleagues told him that it was okay to keep these gifts off of financial records.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting that you had a picture there of Scalia, and I think that would be his defense, is Scalia's dead. So he could say...
So wait a minute, you think he would be like Justice Scalia?
I totally think that. Well, you know, they used to say, well, early on, Clarence Thomas never spoke during the proceedings. And many people say that he basically, you know, followed whatever Scalia did. He, you know, had this big admiration for Scalia. So I think, honestly, he would put it on Scalia and say, I spoke to Scalia and, you know, Scalia told me I didn't have to do that. You know, because he's been on the court. He's the most senior member of the court. You know, he's more senior than Alito. He's more senior than any of the other justices. Kagan. He's the oldest one. He's been on since what, 91? So, or 91 or 92. So I think he would use that but I do think that advice was correct, which is he should have to disclose. Don't say my colleagues, say which colleagues were saying that. And if your colleagues are saying that, then that means we need to iron out the rules for the Supreme Court before. This is one of the things that we are recognizing in America, is that our system has some holes in it, and people are exploiting those holes. We saw it in 2020, or the 2020 election. They were like, let's send in fake electors. Let's exploit every hole. Let's try to get the vice president to just reject it and send it back to the states. We need to codify a lot of these things that we thought we didn't have to, because we thought everybody would always be a good faith actor, even if they disagreed with some of, important policies. We thought that they were going to play by the rules. But now we're realizing there are people that want to color outside the lines and play outside the rules. So if that's the case, you must make the rules even stricter than they exist right now.
Absolutely. If you want to keep the faith of the American people intact, you better do something.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, again, we're going to look at this whole situation. We're going to look at the Supreme Court as like, y'all are just a bunch of puppets. You know what I'm saying? Y'all just rubber stamp whoever's in office. Whoever's in office and has the opportunity to appoint, then we're going to rubber stamp. Take a look at this. Tiana, you checked in. Tiana, you funny as hell. You said, I have to take an ethics test for my job, and I manage a damn copy center at college. Clarence Thomas needs to be impeached. He knows the rules. Tiana said, I only manage a copy center at college. This dude is on the Supreme Court bench, and he acts like he doesn't know the rules. That'd have to be one of the weakest excuses. Then he gonna blame it on his colleagues, bro. That had to be one of the weakest excuses. Like, oh, they told me I was okay, so therefore I'm okay.
Right. Yeah, no, and like I said, mark my words, if he does say who it was, he's gonna blame it on the dead guy. He may blame it on RBG. Who knows? He's gonna blame it on people who are not here to defend themselves. And he did have a close relationship with Scalia. So it's very possible. It is possible that Scalia said that. And then we would find out that Scalia was not so much a rules person either. But the problem is there's too much ambiguity in the rules for the Supreme Court. We've got to tighten that up. It is not you get this lifetime position and you get to do whatever you want for the rest of your life. That's got to stop.
Got to stop. We're going to stop. We got to stop this here, right here, brother. Dr. Jason Nichols, thank you so much, bro. Talk a little bit very quickly about your podcast and how people can tune in.
Definitely check out my podcast, The Working Class Elites, anywhere podcasts are found, or you can just Google it. Definitely check it out. We got some great episodes, including one with my man right there, which is phenomenal. So definitely check out the Working Class Elites podcast and follow me anywhere you can follow me.
Absolutely. There it is. Boom. Boom. We're pulling it up. There you go. There you go.
Yes,
my big brother, Dr. Jason Nichols, checking in as always on Mondays here on The Culture. Doc, always glad to have you on. Thank you so much for your expertise and your insight. And of course, for being so good for the culture, brother.
Thank you, my brother.
Absolutely. All right, folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, we're going to check in on how we can reclaim our wellness with Dr. Bridget, MD, and my man Scotty from Offscript TV. So we talk about cannabis and the NBA. Stay with us. That conversation is up next on The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
There's an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol.
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear. Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home. You dig?
All right, folks. Well, today is Monday, and so it's time for another installment of Reclaim Your Wellness with Dr. Bridget, MD. Dr. Bridget, good afternoon. Sis, how you feeling, Doc?
Great. How are you, Farajii?
I am good. I am good. Man, this is a very interesting and this is a trendy conversation. It's funny, as I was preparing for this discussion, I was like, why isn't a lot of people really talking about this? This is major. This might have major implications. So it's been shared, Dr. Bridget, that the NBA will no longer test for marijuana. And so I wanted to, by you being the expert that you are in the cannabis field and teaching and giving us some better understanding about this whole process, what do you make of this? And I know we're supposed to be talking to my guy Scotty from Off Script TV as well. So I want to have these voices to talk about something that this seems to essentially will change the game, pardon the pun. Well, what's going on with this?
Absolutely. A lot can change with this. And so basically what we're finding is that the NBA will no longer test for cannabis, according to a tentative deal between the league and the National Basketball Players Association. And so this is still kind of up in the air. It's not finalized yet, but if it does come about, it will basically say that there'll be a 7-year deal, that cannabis will be removed from the drug testing program and the players will no longer be penalized for its use. And so this is a huge deal. You know, this has been coming up off and on for quite a while about cannabis, CBD, players, opioid use, injuries, mental health. And so the fact that we're getting to this point, particularly with the NBA, it means a lot. And so the highlights of the deal is that the players will actually be able to promote and invest in gambling or betting organizations as well as cannabis companies. As I said before, they'll no longer be penalized for its use when they're using it, and the test will no longer exist. And so we'll see what happens with this. And of course, with it being a 7-year deal, what we do during that 7 years will have a huge impact on what will happen in the next 7 years.
All right, Scotty. Okay, Scotty, my guy Scotty from Off Script TV, one of my favorite sports contributors. Scotty, good to talk to you, brother. How you feeling this afternoon?
And I'm feeling good. I appreciate you for having me as always. Shout out to you, Dr. Bridget, as well.
Absolutely.
Hey, Scotty, what do you make of this? Because this may have far-reaching impact here. I mean, if players are allowed to use cannabis, will that impede on their performance? And if they're allowed to not just use it, but to advocate for it, to invest in it, I mean, you're talking about open up the door. Like the green is going to be greener.
I look at it. I guess I'm weird. I don't have a problem. I never had a problem with, because to me, it's not a performance enhancing drug. And Dr. Bridget could probably dissect and all that. But for me, I look at it as, if you remember the NBA when Allen Iverson was going on, and players used to be able to come with chains and baggy clothes, and they didn't like the look of that. And then they made players start wearing suits and all that type of stuff. I think in that 7-year period, if you have owners and GMs complaining on how their players are coming to the facility, maybe even smelling like it or not being accountable, I think you can see that shift go right back to where it was. I think this is this is what you've been asking for. We'll let you hang yourselves. And then if things go awry, we can have the reason to say, this is why we didn't allow weed into the facility or into the arena. So I really believe it is just a way to appease the players, because we know the NBA is more of a player-driven league than the NFL. But if it's literally to hang your own self, we're going to give you the rope. If you hang yourself with it, that is on you. Yeah, bet on sports. Bet on your game. Like, to me, it's like it's being a parent, and you're just like, okay, you feel you're grown now. Do you? And then if anything goes bad, it's not on the league saying we didn't allow them or we opposed or we stopped. So I'm cool with it. The players have to do right by these new rules.
So in terms of the performance part of it, Doc, when we're talking about it, break it down for us. Are there some strains of cannabis that will enhance performance versus some strains that may impede upon the performance, especially if you're performing as a high level like an NBA player?
Absolutely. So, I mean, first of all, let's be realistic that about 60 to 80% of professional athletes are using cannabis currently. However, they might sneak it into their work. So this is coming from Jose Hess, who's a journalist that wrote the Runner's High that talks about cannabis use and exercise. So it's already out there and it's already happening. We're now getting to a point where we're actually being open and discussing it, right? But when it comes to cannabis use, using the right strains, the right products, it can help with your pain. It can help with your inflammation. It can help with your focus. Or you can use aspects of it that actually sometimes can slow people down. So I think education is key. I think this can actually replace a lot of the more addictive medications that some players are really kind of forced into using because that's their only choice. And it might actually make a better player physically as well as mentally.
Scotty, what's your take on that, bro?
Listen, I'm not a doctor. And I definitely couldn't do the schooling for it. My thing is this. I never have a problem with somebody saying this helps me with this or this helps me with that. But the only side that the only side that I play with it is even though it's a nonprofit, you have owners who have a business within this entity and they feel, and that side is privatized. So if they ever did decide to say, hey, we don't want to allow our players to do that, that is it's like this, man. It's like if the NBA is a dream, it's a dream job. It is a privilege to play in the NBA. I just have a hard time with saying like, I need to smoke weed to play in the NBA. That don't make sense to me. I'm sorry. Like, the physical strength. I do agree with the doctor, the Vicodins, the popping pills and all that type of stuff. The way that teams are forcing players to do, especially in the NFL, that is a whole nother basket and a whole nother boat. But I'm just never being like, I gotta smoke weed to do my job. It's like, bro, then this ain't the job for you. That's just because I don't drink and I don't smoke, so I don't see it don't do nothing for me. So it's just like, for me, my mindset is like, if that's what you need, that's what you need. But you can't be like, oh, you got to conform to what I like to do. If that's what you like to do, you just can't do it here. And players be crying about it. But this is the time, Farajii. I need you to be that. You making too much money to do. You do that to your boy Lamar. He making too much money, Scotty. Why you asking for all this extra money? They making millions. You smoke weed when you retire, like bro. Like millions. I'm sorry.
Hey, look, and I'm glad you brought that point up, Scotty, because that's the thing about it. Like, I don't know all of the dynamics of smoking weed and in terms of that enhancement. But I agree with you. Like, if you want to smoke weed, you should be allowed to smoke weed. That's totally up to you. That's a personal decision, whether you're an athlete or not. The thing is that the conversation starts to change because there are so many hands in the pot, with pun intended. There's so many hands in the pot here, Doc, that like Scotty just brings up a point. Suppose you have an owner who do on another side business his investment into the cannabis industry, right? Mm-hmm. And he wants to bring that to his team. You know what I mean? Does this new rule open the door for that to happen, where he feels like, you know what? Now that we can do this, hey, let me bring this player into this business opportunity. Let me do this. Let me do like on the business side, because now you're going to start to see more players. They might be advocating. Now, that's on one point. The other point is parents still use sports figures as role models.
100%. Yeah. And that's going to be a problem, because if we don't do this right, then we are only enhancing and going further down the rabbit hole with the stigma that people in my position medically are trying to move away from. So the way that I see cannabis on a daily basis is probably much different from others, because I see cancer patients, fibromyalgia, multiple sclerosis. I am helping people heal their bodies with cannabis. If we don't approach this properly, the kids, the families aren't going to see that medicinal aspect. We have to get it is one of the few plants that we're actually able to use recreationally and medically equally, but we have to make sure that we approach this in a way that is not giving the wrong idea to young people. And so the education piece is key. And I agree with you, Scotty, that if you feel like this is what you need to do just to get through the day, that's a problem in itself. But if you're seeing this as a way to avoid some of the other pitfalls of being a high-level athlete, this is a great opportunity. So if we're able to educate people, if we're able to look at this differently, if they're able to set up a parameter, we can change what cannabis means in this country. Because first and foremost, it was medicine. First and foremost, it was levels of CBD and THC mixed, not just high THC things. The agricultural scientists have created these, really high euphoric type of flower. We need to get back to the medicine. The NBA can be key in that, or they can make the situation worse. So I'm hoping that they look at this and see how powerful their message can be. And if they miss the boat, then, it's not going to go well.
All right, look, we're going to take a quick pause. When we come forward, more conversation with my guy, Scotty from Off Script TV, Dr. Bridget, MD, as we're talking about Reclaim Your Wellness. And, of course, I want to hear from you. Our crew, y'all are checking in, sharing your thoughts about this. As we're talking about now, that looks like the NBA will open it up for players to be able to use cannabis. What are your thoughts around this? Join us in the conversation. Post your comments on our chat on YouTube, Facebook, and as we're streaming live on Black Star Network and Amazon News. And stay tuned. The conversation continues here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
feel the hidden impacts of climate change that land harder in Black, brown, and Native communities.
Not many people talk about it because they clearly don't know our lives. But with President Biden's landmark infrastructure and climate plans, our issues are finally seen.
Removing lead pipes means we know our water is safe. Cutting carbon pollution helps our kids breathe easier. 1.5 million new jobs means stable work in communities. The impact we need
right now.
Folks, welcome back to the show. We've been talking about how will be a new rule and a tentative agreement that will allow cannabis use in the NBA. Now, this is going to be for the collective bargaining agreement of the NBA, and it will allow players to not just use cannabis, but also invest and advocate for cannabis use if they so choose to. So we've been having a conversation as part of our Reclaim Your Wellness segment with Dr. Bridget Indeed. We've been talking about this as she is one that is very versed in the cannabis and understanding and the administration of cannabis for medicinal purposes. And I got my guy Scotty from Off Script TV to talk about the implications and impact of this on the sports world. All right, let me go to some of our crew members because folks are checking in, giving some very strong thoughts around this whole topic. Willie Frazier, you said, shout out to Cherry Love. The only problem I have is the kids looking up to athletes doing this early into their brain development. Doc, what's your take on that? Because all three of us got children on this panel. Absolutely. So how do you have a conversation? And I'm just thinking, if Michael Jordan was smoking cannabis when he had the prom, how that would. I want to be like Mike. I wonder if that campaign be like Mike. I wonder if that campaign would have never happened.
Responsibility is first and foremost, right? So we have to look at this from a responsible approach. It's just like the baseball players and what they were chewing all the tobacco back in the day.
Yeah.
And what did kids do? They were out there doing the same thing. We have to approach this from a medicinal point of view. We have to approach this from a healing point of view. Their message changes everything. And so if they don't get it, we're making bad choices, because I'm like anyone else with my kids. I don't want them to fall into this early. I want them, if cannabis is a choice that they make, I want them to make it at the right age, at the right time, when their brain is more fully developed and for the right reasons. And so we have the NBA has the opportunity to create that messaging, or they can just kind of, over exaggerate, push this in a way that will be way too attractive to young people. I mean, we grew up during the time of the whole Camel cigarettes, right? And it was the cartoon Camel, and every magazine I looked in, here's this cartoon. And what did kids do? They bought Camel cigarettes. We either control the messaging, or we create a new problem and pretend we didn't know how we got here. Right now, I have a huge issue with all these brands out there that are making packages that look like Skittles and Fruit Loops and all these kids cereals and candies, but they're all THC. And then, you wonder why the largest group of kids that end up in the ER are 2 and 4 years old, because you're eating your THC Doritos and you're not putting them away. And guess what? Your kids come right behind you and finish the bag. We need to start a conversation around this, that we take more responsibility. And as you said earlier, the way that sports goes, the way our country goes, if they create an educational model for this, we can change how we look at cannabis entirely.
So I'm wondering, how confident, Scotty, should we be in the sports world, NBA? This hasn't spilled over to the NFL yet, but how confident should we be in the NBA that they're going to get the messaging right, according to what Dr. Bridget is saying?
You can't. As a brand, NBA can say, yeah, we support, marijuana use for the educational, but you can't stop players on Instagram doing Instagram live smoking weed. You can't stop players on their free time at a club or, paparazzi taking them smoke. You can't stop the recreational side of it in the off season. You can't stop any of that, right? Because you don't have any rules in place to say, hey, this isn't when you can and cannot use, because we know, once again, the NBA is ran by the players. So my issue is, the culture is always going to be infused with the kids, because that's how the NBA is a $1 billion business. It's not because it's an educational use. It's because the players are cool. They take what they see. That's why you see kids doing all the images and shooting threes now. It is a reflection of the culture, right? So when you get into it deeply, yeah, it's cool for the grown man to use weed for his physical ailments, but kids don't see it as that. They just see it as, man, look, such and such is smoking weed, and it's cool, and this is that, and this is that. So it falls back on parents, right, to feel on their kids like, hey, this is why they're doing this, and this such and such and that. But it's just going to be a hard place for the NBA to change the stigma, because you still have rap artists, you still have you still have other forms of drug usage, good, bad, or indifferent, that is going to influence the culture. And when you add, because they always say basketball stars wanted to be rap stars and rap stars wanted to be basketball. So it's going to infuse, and you just don't know. You're just not going to know.
But I don't think we have to end I'm not saying that we eliminate that image. That, like you said, that's nearly impossible. But we can bring in a new image to balance it out. And I think that's what we're able to do. Right now, the NFL is no longer testing during their off season, but they're allowed to use it, during the time that they're not practicing or in play. And a lot of the other professional teams have gotten into this space one way or another, whether they're allowing CBD and testing that first, or whether they've just decided to almost don't ask, don't tell. The hockey league basically doesn't test unless they see a problem and feel like they need to test. I think we can do this in a way that we could change the messaging. And I think we particularly need to change the messaging for our community, because here every day I see older people, which is the largest group of new cannabis users every day, sit in pain. They sit in pain because of the fear of drugs that are addictive and the opioids. They sit in pain because they lived through the war on drugs. And instead of seeing a option that could be helpful for them, they choose, and it changes who you are when you choose to just live in pain. And so this is something where we can take this message, we can take these NBA players, we can actually have conversations and stories that allow these elderly people even to find a new option. We don't have to smoke it. That alone, we can utilize this in pill forms, in topicals, and all other forms. It doesn't have to be the same image that we've known for the last, 50 years. We can change the message with something as powerful as the NBA.
My problem is this, right? How do you tell the high school kid who shows up to his practice high that it's a problem? Because he's like, I got an injury. Like, it's little things like that. Like, it's so many variables, because if I can always use, like, this person is using it, because you have to, like, for people outside of, like, and you're in a certain situation that says, hey, you can't use it, or we don't allow it here. And then you're saying, hey, but this person is using it, and nobody sees a problem with this, and nobody sees a problem with that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I get it, like the medical side of it, but the stigma of it is so rampant. It's just hard to get around it. And then when you're saying it's okay, how far does that trickle down, and what age groups do you start to get into? Because now you start getting into high school athletics, and now you have kids 15, 16, 17 years old thinking it's okay because I'm an athlete. I play ball, I play AAU, I play summer league. I've been playing for a year round, and my body hurts. My mind it's a very slippery slope to me. You know what I'm saying? That's just I get it. I'm not much of a pill taker, so I get like the Oxycontins and Vicodins and all that, Percocets and all that type of stuff. I've seen it, been in the military. I have friends that were hooked on that type of stuff. But my thing is that slippery slope of going down medicinal marijuana. It just, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hear what you're saying. And I think, the fact of the matter is all of that is accessible to people now, and it's been accessible, right? And there are, I often tell my students, you do something stupid, you're still going to be accountable for doing something stupid. You show up to practice high, that's a problem. If you don't understand what's going on, I think a lot of the messaging can change everything. There was a point in time that no one wore seatbelts in America. Nobody did. You got in the car, you just went. It didn't take a lot. It took just simple education to change that image. And now people feel naked if they get in the car and don't put their seatbelt on. We can change how we look at this as long as we make an approach to this that is helpful instead of damaging to our community. And just as well as Reefer Madness, probably the greatest propaganda campaign ever, which told us that cannabis was bad, and it still exists. We still are buying into all of that. It is years of work that got us to Reefer Madness, and it's going to be years of work that get us out of it. This is an opportunity to pull us out of it.
This is interesting. Beatface Lay, you've been very, very vocal in the conversation in the chat here. Beatface Lay, you said us as Black folks have anxiety living in this country. We need cannabis. What the hell is so hard about it? It doesn't stop you from being able to drive or do everyday activities. So what's the problem?
You need therapy. Hey, come on, bro. Like it's both ways. You just be like, we's gonna save it all. No, you need therapy. Go get yourself some therapy. Go get a counselor. Come on, man. Stop playing.
That's the anxiety too. Go ahead, Doc.
I'm not going to argue with them. I'm not going to argue with Scotty on that one. I do have a problem where we look for quick fixes to long-term problems. And it's often very easy to take a pill or take a toke instead of doing the work that therapy offers. So that'll be my first go ahead anytime. Do the work that allows you to get out of your situation as opposed to hiding from it. And I'm very particular about that I don't want people to get into the cannabis space because they're avoiding their real life. There is something called cannabis use disorder. And though the numbers were very low years ago, where it was at the same level of caffeine addiction, 9%, it is now rising because of misuse. We can look at this. It's first of all, it won't kill you, and it's better than the opioid use. And then the opioid numbers will decrease and have been decreasing because as states take on more medical cannabis programs. However, to be able to get that message across to decrease misuse of cannabis, we have to have the right education.
Can I say this on break? How about we take the same initiative and ban cigarettes? Like that's what I'm saying. Like ban cigarettes.
That's a good one. Hey, Scotty, that's a good one, right? There's cigarettes, and let's talk about it. There's alcohol.
100.
Have that same stigma because it's
what I'm saying? Like
because weed is the stigma because of the brown and black uses and all the portrayal of it. But let's not act like cigarettes don't kill twice as many people as weed does. Ban them from ban that.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and I know we got to take another pause, but Dr. Bridget, that's exactly it. Like, we don't have that same level of urgency when it comes to alcohol usage, when it comes to cigarettes, hell, when it comes to caffeine. You just talked about it. Like, we all drink coffee, and over years, you don't drink coffee, Scotty?
No, I don't drink coffee. I got a natural high. I don't need nothing. Listen, Sprite. That's my drug. Yeah, Sprite is my drug. Like, that's my drug.
High fructose corn syrup.
There you go.
Fruit Loops. Yeah, baby.
Fruit Loops. High fructose corn syrup is the opioid of America. Look, I got to take a quick pause.
That's your drug.
We're going to take a quick pause. I want to get to more of what our crews have to say about this. Folks, stay with us as we talk about cannabis and sports. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home. You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. On this week's of Reclaim Your Wellness with Dr. Bridget MD, we're talking to the good doctor about cannabis usage in the NBA. We're also joined by our sports contributor, Scotty, from Off Script TV, and having a very enlightening conversation about the impact of all of this, especially on the next generation. Folks, join us in the discussion. We would love to hear what you have to say. So we're all at this place, and Scotty, I think you brought up an excellent point. You know, let's have the same type of energy for cigarettes and for alcohol and for some of the other vices, caffeine, high fructose corn syrup. I mean, Doc, we're in this space. I think at the root of it all, people are just tired of suffering. People are essentially tired of trying to find ways to alleviate the physical pain, the external pain, or the internal pain, right? Whether it's anxiety, depression, and all of those things, right? And I'm wondering to myself, is that even, it's you know, how do we get people to a better way? Somebody posted in the chat, one of the crew members said that pot is a gateway drug. Now that might be based on the propaganda.
Yep, that's old propaganda without a doubt. And there's some really great research that shows that if you are, they took high school kids, junior high kids that were using cannabis, and then as they got older, got into other more illicit type drugs. They actually found that the kids that started with alcohol during junior high were more likely to start using harder drugs than the kids that actually started with cannabis. And so alcohol ends up being more of a gateway depending on the age you start using, more than cannabis has ever been. So the idea that this is the gateway drug has not shown that to be true. And so I think, you know, a lot of this, like I said, goes back to the best propaganda campaign that there ever was, right? And if you want to change how we look at this, for me and what I do with a lot of my patients that are new to this space, that are looking for relief and are not sure how to navigate it, I do start with CBD. It's not addictive, okay? That it helps with pain and inflammation. There's really great research behind it. How you respond to it might be different for me than for somebody else, but the Major League Baseball just signed a contract with the Stanley brothers that created Charlotte's Web, huge CBD company that really changed the landscape of what we understand about CBD. In the course of this with the NBA, Mike Tyson's organization, Tyson 2.0, and Adam Wilkes are in talks with the NBA for them to utilize and focus on their brand in this conversation. You know, there's a way of approaching this. And if we can say it's hard and it's difficult and we can't do anything about it, or we can try.
Right.
And the best thing that I think we should do is start with a CBD education that let people, when I have patients that are long-term users and they're coming to me and I say, oh, you should try CBD. And they kind of look at me like, whatever, right? A year later, when they're coming back and I'm like, how's your condition? And they're like, well, it's really no better despite all of their use. And then I get back to the CBD conversation and it changes how they use cannabis. It doesn't have to be used in a irresponsible way. Okay. It doesn't need to be used in a way that causes more issues than it helps. It can be used in a very responsible way that can be beneficial. And the fact of the matter is, as much as we would like to say alcohol, cigarette, and I'm get rid of all of it. I agree with it. But we're a vice-driven country and world always. We always have been. And we have more stressors and issues now, and our kids deal with more pressure and stress now than what they've ever done before. Okay. And so we have to look at how do we help them deal with, and I'm not saying, trust me, I'm not saying alcohol, any of this is an option. But if we don't control the narrative, it ends up being that. We have an opportunity to get kids to use less alcohol. Alcohol sales actually go down in states where they have rec cannabis use. Okay.
Yeah.
Alcohol will kill you. All right. Opioid use prescriptions go down in states that have medical cannabis. Opioids will kill you. We all know cigarette smoking kills, which is why the tobacco companies are investing in cannabis companies, because they're losing. We have an opportunity to change what this looks like. And it's scary. And I completely agree with that, because we're talking about looking at this in a totally different way than it's ever been looked at before. But what we've been doing has not been working.
Let me ask you very quickly, and Scotty, I want to get your take on this. The criminalization of Black men in particular in sports. We already know it's criminalized in the general society. Because, Dr. Bridget, we as a country have not legalized cannabis, right? But if you have various, like a major industry like the sports industry saying it's okay, but you're in a state that says it's not okay, then that Black man puts himself to be at risk of being criminalized or being put. How will the NBA deal with that, especially in states where cannabis usage is not on the law books of being legal?
Right. I think we're creating a problem, to be totally honest with you.
I mean, do you feel like, and I'm wondering, I'm just asking, you may not know this answer, but I'm wondering, is this like putting the cart before the horse?
A little bit.
Like, is the NBA moving too fast before? Is the NBA trying to serve as the trendsetter, or they're following the trend? You know what I'm saying? Because if you put this out there, and you got these Black men who represent these teams, and they're like, oh, I'm good. But you in a state like Indiana, or you know what I'm saying, Scotty?
Yeah, I get it. It happens in the military all the time, right? So it's like you could be in a state, like if you're stationed in Seattle, well, the state of Seattle is cool with it. The military is not. You know, it's like the total opposite. So if you're in Seattle and they're cool with it and your state's cool with it, that's great. But if you in Indiana and the NBA say we cool with it and you get caught up with it, you're a problem. So it's understanding that. I think that you should have had it maybe, state regulated, you know what I'm saying? Like, hey, we're cool with it, in regards to your state regulations, or just like they said, we're not testing for it. So once again, like I said, I think the NBA just puts the ball back into the players' court and say, listen, we're not going to test for it. We're cool with it. All right. Now, whatever you do on your own, what I'm saying? That is on you. You know what I'm saying? So flying with it, you think about that, flying with it in the air, all that.
Right.
It's a lot of nuances to that the NBA does not want to have issues with. Or if they do have issues, what can the NBA say? Well, that's why we didn't allow it in the first place.
Yeah. Right. Brittany Griner just got home. You know what I'm saying? Like in the issues that she had taking cannabis oil, out of the US, and she was locked up for all that time. Like, we definitely need to think about this in a responsible way. I do think it might be a little bit of putting the cart before the horse, but something's got to start the conversation. So maybe this is something where they're a big enough organization that have enough influence to maybe push the needle. But yeah, it is a setup. I think it's a complete setup, and we need to consider that.
McCall, you checked in and said we need good education and messaging when it comes to cannabis. I think that's the number one concern. I think that, and I think that along with that, McCall, the culture has to be there. Like, folks are, and it's interesting, Dr. Bridget and Scotty, when I look at the crew in the chat right now, it's like some folks are for it, other folks are hesitant and against it. So it's like still 50-50. So it's still a cultural thing that has not been fully accepted. A lot of us, and I'm saying those of us Black folks, we're still up for debate about it. You know, and I think that's the other part about this. Like, again, I'm going back to Scotty's point. I think you make an excellent point, bro, that if your job says it's okay, but then the culture, the state, the household you grow up in is saying it's not okay, then it's going to create some tensions. And I think that it is important. But I do believe, to your point too, Dr. Bridget, there needs to be some very real conversations. Like, we've been scared to death about cannabis. We've been scared to death about a lot of things, drugs. And I'm not saying cocaine is ever good. I'm not saying that. But we've been scared to death about a lot of things. And I think that now the culture is ready for some very civilized and very knowledgeable and informative conversations about this in a way that is beyond just the propaganda and the scare tactics and the fear mongering around it. We need to do something else.
What's funny, Dr. Bridget, what's funny to me is that somebody can walk in their house with a cigarette pack that says Surgeon General says it gives cancer and kills you. And they say, I use it for stress. And people just are okay with that. Oh, yeah, that's cool. But then, you know, you walk in with a joint, and like I can walk in with a joint in my family household, and they're thinking I can just walk in with some dope. You know what I'm saying? Okay, you know what I'm saying? Like, but the stigma is so strong.
So strong, bro.
So strong. And you know, when Dr. Bridget was talking, I was like, dang, like even the way I view weed, I was just like, dang, I need to have that same energy for cigarettes. You know what I'm saying? Or because it's literally you people will come into your office and say, you know, I'm taking in the military, they give designated smoke breaks. They do that because they know people get stressed or antsy. I gotta take a smoke break. You know what I'm saying? But let it come to weed and it's like, oh God, like man, it's wild, man. It's wild to me. It's wild.
Hey, Doc, we know that this is an ongoing conversation. I know the NFL is possibly considering, and you talked a little bit about it, but we're going to have to end the conversation. But how can we get more information from you? How can people tune in to the work and some of the latest news around this issue?
Absolutely. So I am continuing the conversation today on Instagram at Dr. Bridget MD. So if people have comments, questions, we're going to go live after the Culture with Farajii to continue this conversation. You can always email me at info@drbridgetmd.com. But otherwise, I will see you at 5:30 Eastern on Instagram, and let's continue the conversation.
There it is right there, folks. This is the after chat with Dr. Bridget Williams. She is continuing the conversation about cannabis and sports. First after chat that she's doing after her segment here on The Culture. So definitely tune
in. That Baltimore.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland@RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. Let me get some final words from my brother Scotty here from Offscript TV as we talk about the big news coming from the sports world, where Odell Beckham Jr. has officially signed with the Baltimore Ravens. A one-year deal that's worth $18 million, $13 million guaranteed, and he is signed for this one-year deal. He was a free agent after being suffering a second torn ACL, and as a result of that, he was in the free agency. There were teams such as LA Rams and others, teams that were looking to bring the veteran wide receiver into their locker rooms, but it ultimately came down to the Ravens, who were courting the wide receiver for a year. Scotty, talk to me. What does this do for the Lamar Jackson situation with the Baltimore Ravens from your vantage point, bro?
That's how I feel about the Ravens. Until you do right by Lamar.
Silly, no, I got you. Until you do right by me, everything you think about is gonna crumble.
Everything you think about is gonna crumble until you do right by Lamar Jackson. I don't care about nothing else. You ain't got no quarterback. Nobody care about y'all, Bama. You ain't got no quarterback. Okay, so I don't care about Odell. I don't care about nobody else. I don't care about none of that. All right, it don't matter until you have a quarterback signed, sealed, and delivered in Baltimore. So signing Odell Beckham just puts a Band-Aid over a bleeding ship that is taking on water without Lamar Jackson. I don't care about the rest of it. You're muted. I think you're muted. No audio. See, that's that. See, you ain't doing right by Lamar. That's why your audio don't work. See, that's why your audio don't work, because you're doing Lamar Jackson wrong. That's cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the problem right here. But it's okay. Listen. Listen. My mama always used to say, all right, if you don't got nothing nice to say about somebody, don't say nothing at all. So listen, people out there in the culture. So since he can't finish it up, I'm going to finish it up for him. Listen, Odell don't matter, okay? They don't have a quarterback in the Ravens. They need to do right by Lamar Jackson and sign his butt. Bring him back, give him whatever he wants, because he put his body, his health on the line for the Ravens. Okay? Okay. But Farajii ain't going to tell you the truth. I'm going to tell you the truth. That's my little 2 cents.
Like make that left give a stop sign. Couple tops in the front line.
Okay. We're about to start walking down right now. All right. So they telling me I got to wrap up the show. This has been The Culture with Farajii Muhammad. Go ahead. They said they want me to wrap up the show. I can wrap it up. Now I can wrap it up. You ain't got no audio. We can't hear you. So this has been The Culture with Farajii Muhammad, man. We thank you. This is an everyday show hosted by my man Farajii. Listen, I've been your co-host today, Scotty from Offscript. You can tune in to check me out. We're talking all sports and everything like that. Listen, this has been on the Black Star Network, and we are out.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.